Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. I'm here with Connor, even Levynomics fame. We're going to be talking about Lyon. We're talking about sort of transfer news, views and clues, football finance stuff. As always, there's never a dull day in the world of Tottenham. And with the market being the way it is at the moment, with what's happening in French football, with the shift towards youth of across European football, we got to talk about whether there's some strategy that can be used here for Tottenham Hotspur, for other clubs, to maybe looking into other areas, other pools. We've got loads of things to talk about. Connor, how are you, my man? Good to see you, boss.
Hello, mate. Nice to see you. Yeah, very well. Thank you. Very well.
What's been going on? Sorry, before I get into that, guys, I want to say everyone who reached out to me overnight and said, "Am I okay?" I was good, mate. I was good. I just had a little bit of a weird wobbly moment at the end of the show yesterday, and just thought I didn't want to go like AWOL on the stream, so I thought it'd better to cut off, but I was fine a couple of seconds later. I don't know what was going on, just a bit of a dizzy spell. Big lad in the heat doesn't always go down well, but thank you for all the well wishes. Guys, please do the favors you always do. Smash the like button for me. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and drop your comments. Let's get into the show, mate. Let's start off, buddy. Have you seen the news about Lyon? What's been going on out in Lyon?
Yeah, I have. I'm not all over it, but I've done a little bit of looking into it. But yeah, interesting.
Let me get the story up from. Let me get this out of the way. Hang on. Always got to get rid of these overlays. So here is the story so far. It was dropped by Fabrizio Romano a couple of hours ago. But essentially, Lyon have been relegated to League Two following the DNCG meeting. Following a meeting with the DNCG, Lyon have been relegated to League Two. The LFP have confirmed in an official statement Les Gones were handed a provisional relegation during their last meeting with the French football financial body on the basis that if their financial situation didn't improve, they would be relegated to the French second tier. Eagle Football Group, the consortium which owns Olympique Lyonnais, have pulled multiple financial levers to try and convince the DNCG that the financial situation has drastically improved, including the sale of John Textor's stake in Crystal Palace and Lyon's women's team. However, this has not satisfied the requirements needed. The development occurs despite Textor sounding positive about the potential outcome following the meeting. He revealed to the press that the Rome club's financial situation had improved and that he was happy with the meeting. Speaking to the press, Textor said, "You can see from the contributions of our shareholders, we have invested new capital, not only for the DNCG, but also for our UEFA licensing process. Not to mention the good news of the sale of Crystal Palace. Our liquidity situation has improved considerably. Lyon will now be forced to play their football in the second tier next season." I mean, it's a bit of a hammer blow straight out of the traps here, mate, because John Textor had to sell Crystal Palace to Woody Johnson, bit of a dick, pardon the pun, the New York Jets owner last week to essentially allow Crystal Palace to play in the Europa League. But I don't know if you've got much insight on that particular deal, but it looks like it was pennies in the pound. I think it was for a 42%, the valuation that made of Crystal Palace overall. It really didn't feel like that Crystal Palace should be valued at about £380 million. Like, are Tottenham Hotspur 10 times the size of Crystal Palace? What's your thoughts on that? And was John Textor just sort of accepting a lower bid than reality to get it done quickly so that he could A, let Crystal Palace participate in Europe, and B, transfer some funds across to try to get Lyon out of the jam that they're in with regards to relegation, all for that to be essentially, by the by, because Lyon have been relegated anyway. Is it a hammer blow for John Textor's week?
Yeah, I think it is. I think he's had a bit of a month, to be honest, John Textor. I think, look, he for a while has wanted to sell his stake in Palace, not just because of this Europa stuff with Palace, but he was quite frustrated. I think that they wouldn't allow him to become a majority owner, right? So it was that classic, felt like he was putting money in without being able to make decisions. And actually, from a sort of voting perspective, I think although he owned 45% or something like that, he only had 25% of the vote, and in reality, less than 25% of the vote, because Parish always had the deciding vote between the four owners Palace have got. So, yeah, he was frustrated about that. But you're right; it's a terrible deal in terms of what he's sold at. I mean, he put in just shy of 90 million, I believe, to purchase the stake originally. And I think he's invested, close to 200 million on top of that. And then to sell his stake for 190, he's made a loss of somewhere sort of around 80 million. And as you say, I think he rushed that to try and save Lyon's bacon. And obviously that hasn't happened either. And at the same time, Botafogo, which is the team he owns in Brazil, have been ordered to pay 21 million to FIFA because they haven't paid a transfer on time. So all in all, I think he's had a bit of a month.
Yeah, and we were looking, Johnny. Welcome to the stream, mate. I'll let you have your say on this in a second. We were looking earlier on the Football Inc. And by the way, guys, if you weren't over there, then please do look. I'll put the link in the chat and get over there and smash the subscribe. We were looking at the market valuations of Lyon players that might have to, that will be sold now because these guys aren't going to want to be playing in Ligue 2. Malik Fofana, a player that Tottenham have been interested in, a 5'4" left winger, really, really nippy, tricky, more of a traditional winger, and I think something that Tottenham need, although I'm not always advocating that we go and sniff in these bargain basement deals. But
another man of Solomon, surely.
No, another man. I think he's better than Man Solomon. We'll find out, though. And the other one that's interesting, who's a player that I thought was actually playing for Lyon full-time, but he's on loan from Botafogo, is Thiago Almada, who's a 10, who can play a little bit on the left and the right. And this geezer is an absolute unit. Argentinian national team player, played 10 games for Argentina, cracking player. And he's not going to, just because he might go back to Botafogo, but ultimately if Botafogo are in financial difficulties as well because of John Textor's various situations, then, at some point maybe he might end up coming back. And I just wonder whether or not there'll be some obvious candidates in the Premier League ownership market who are looking into French football right now and looking through Lyon's squad and others and thinking, there's some ripe for plucking low-hanging fruit over there.
They got temporary suspended in November, Lyon, and that was overridden. They were giving guarantees, which obviously they've not been able to meet, and therefore this is why they're going. But it's incredible, Textor. As you were saying, Connor, that he's lost a few million, and this is what happens when you've got untold wealth. When you're owning 3 football teams, and it's a whole shit show. It's a shit show at Lyon. It's a shit show at Crystal Palace with what's going on. And Botafogo have just sold 2 of their best players to Nottingham Forest. Why wasn't he selling his 2 best players to Crystal Palace to help himself out? It just seems a complete and utter mess. I don't know if Textor has a manager or someone within his group that helps manage all 3 or oversees all 3 or helps him, because I'm sure this isn't his only paid employment, is it, Connor?
He also owns Molenbeek in Belgium, doesn't he? I think he owns a 4th club as well.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that player you just mentioned, Sean Almeida, I'm pretty sure that's the one Botafogo has got the sanction over.
Correct.
Because they didn't pay the instalment or whatever to Atlanta United, I think it was in the States. I think it's, as you say, it's an absolute shit show. The other interesting piece with this is Textor was proposing to IPO Eagle Football Group, right, on the New York Stock Exchange, and obviously Lyon being the biggest prized asset that's left in it now in League 2, I'm guessing that's not going to happen either. So he's things are not looking great for him.
I was just saying this from Reece Jagger here. Reece Jagger. What were we calling you a minute ago, mate? We're calling you Wayne Rooney Jagger, weren't we? Rooney Jagger from now on. Palace could set that. So Manchester. So Crystal Palace are essentially valued at about 340 million quid or something like that. I haven't done the calculation, but something like that by that valuation of the sale. Palace could sell as a Jean-Philippe Mateta, Mark Gahey, They could, and probably and Dean Henderson as well is not a bad keeper. Like they probably got like 200 million quid's worth of Adam Wharton. Fuck, I forgot Adam Wharton as well. He's massively undersold that stake, hasn't he? Massively undersold that stake. Surely that's a wild.
Woody actually has wood. He's lying in bed with a big Woody right now, thinking to himself, "What? What was he on?" I mean, because that is a fantastic deal for someone, with £4 million or $4 million in the bank. The New York Jets owner, he struck gold, doesn't he? This guy, he sniffed a bargain. He sniffed a guy that was desperately trying to get out. And he's done a great deal. And you never know, Crystal Palace might get extremely lucky because instead of having a multi-club ownership, this guy, through the massive brand of New York Jets, will be looking to promote Crystal Palace and inject decent money into the club.
Mate, he also might want to just take out the other guy, David Blitzer, who's a part owner of what's the hedge fund?
Bromley, isn't it? He's Bromley as well.
Clear Lake, isn't he?
No, he's not Clear Lake. It's
hang on, who is it?
Oh, for fuck's sake, my memory's not working today. David Blitzer owns. He's the CEO of the second biggest hedge fund in the game, and it is Blackstone Capital. Blackstone Capital. That's it. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
So he owns. So BlackRock is obviously the biggest one with $11 trillion under management, and I think Blackstone Capital has like 3.2 trillion. He's the manager of it. He's not the owner of it, but he still gets paid. Still an absolute gazillionaire. But yes, so you could see the New York Jets guy just taking in and buying the whole lot, and then Crystal Palace then become a single owner entity. Let me ask you this, guys, just quickly. Obviously, Tottenham have got vested interest in at least one player at Palace, maybe two, in Adam Wharton and in Everett Chieze for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think under a new 42% owner that there might be a change in the sort of desirability of selling at a certain price point? Do you think that kind of announcement, does that throw any kind of new shenanigans into the variables that might dictate whether Eze leaves this summer or otherwise? And what about Gahey as well, for what it's worth?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you my view first. I'm not sure it will make a difference with Eze. I think one, by the time this is all approved and all goes through, it's going to be a few weeks anyway, at least probably 2 months.
Will he pull out, Connor? Just out of curiosity, have heads of terms been signed? Because don't forget, it has to go before the committee to say that he said, now this has happened with Lyon. Will he say, well, hang on a minute, maybe I don't want to sell now because it's not an issue?
I think they signed. I'm just trying to remember back to the statement Palace made. I think it was a binding offer conditional on Premier League approval was the way they worded it. So who knows? There might be something else in there that allows Textor to get out of it. But to be honest, I think Textor wants out anyway, though, regardless of with this Lyon situation, just because I think he got so frustrated at being, not being able to be a majority investor. I mean, I don't think it'll change anything for Eze. I think only having 2 years left on his contract is probably what softened Palace's stance anyway on the whole instalment piece. So hopefully it won't change anything, I think, on him. But yeah, I mean, back to that valuation point very quickly. I think last time I checked with Palace, I think Forbes had them at over 600 million.
Wow.
That was last year before they got into Europe and all of this stuff as well, right? So to be honest, you're right. They've got an exceptional deal.
Yeah.
An exceptional deal there.
And so new owners. So you're saying you don't think it's going to affect Eze. Johnny, same question to you. What about other players that maybe have a little bit less timeline on their hands? Mark Gahey's got 1 year left on his contract. Do you think that a new owner might come in and just say, sell him now for whatever you can get? I don't want him to leave for free. Or maybe the fact that he paid so little relative to market valuations, maybe he's more inclined to say, let's just get a year out of him in the Europa League because, I'm kind of working on someone else's money anyway. It's like a free lunch.
I can't. I've had my say about Mark Gahey. All he needs to do is last till January. He can sign for like a Bayern Munich, who'd probably be looking for a top player. Sign him on a free, huge signing on fee. pre-contract. It's the only club I can see him going to is Liverpool, and the only reason I can see him going there is if they can't sign a deal for Konate, and Konate has refused to sign that new contract, and he's got 1 year left. They've already sold Konsa for 34 million euros to Bayer Leverkusen, so I think Liverpool are a bit short. Maybe that is the one club you can't refuse, and they might be prepared to pay. But we all know that Steve Parish, you think Daniel Levy's pardball, Parish is far worse. Just ask Louis Saha, slave to the rhythm. If I was Mark Gahey, I'd be staying, playing in Europe, and I would be leaving next summer, playing in the World Cup. I'll be in the squad if fit, and then I would have the world as my oyster. Big signing on fee, probably 10, 15 million signing on fee, agent's fee, and a big wage. I mean, the one player actually I thought right now who would definitely have signed a new contract, or someone would have snapped up, was Jonathan David. We've spoken about that. He was looking for the same sort of numbers, 15 million signing on fee, 10 million for the agent, and around about 250 a week. Now, another one who was looking to go to Napoli, love to see him at Spurs. I mean, why not? I mean, that's the sort of player, left foot, right foot, absolute goal machine. Can't force him onto his weak foot because he doesn't have one. And when you're dealing with Daniel Levy and the fact that he's always looking for a bargain, for me, it's a bargain. Yes, you've got to break your wage structure and pay him 200, 250 a week. But when you're only paying 25 million in total, I'm sure you can knock those fees down with the agent's fee maybe a bit. It's the sort of deal we should be doing right now, Sean. But I can't see, just to finish up, sorry, I can't see us getting anything out of Steve Parish on the cheap.
So I'm just looking at Jonathan David news. Apparently Juventus have been speaking to him and they're seeking final terms. And so he's basically said that he's having to think about it and he'll make his decision. And then there's other stories saying Manchester United have got 48 hours to hijack the move. I don't know why Tottenham aren't in for him. I can understand this notion of like Arsenal are going, well, do I want this guy or this guy? I can understand that there being a little bit of like Mexican standoff stuff in the transfer market when it comes to £70 million, which seems to be the kind of benchmark here for top talent, but they're still a little bit unproven because they're still young. Jonathan, we were speaking about this. We didn't use him specifically, Johnny, in the last show just now on Football Inc. But like everyone in the world is moving youth, right? There's no one wants to pay big money for a 26, 27-year-old anymore. And as we said in the last show, for me, it makes a lot of sense that if everyone's going over there and you're suddenly pumping up the valuations of unproven talent, you suddenly got undervalued talent in the 26, 27-year-old market. And I don't really understand why Jonathan David is someone that everyone is sleeping on. What's the headache there? And if Juve do buy him, what happens to Dusan Vlahovic? Why are they also selling some of their other talents for 25 million quid, like Douglas Luiz? We'll talk about him in a minute. Connor, I'll let you go first quickly, mate, this one. So I think you were about to say something there.
Connor, sorry. I was going to say, like, you're absolutely right. You got Douglas Luiz, who's up for 25 million as a monster six. Yet you're getting 40 million for an 18, 19-year-old. They're all going for crazy money, but at 27 years of age, 28 years of age, it's too old. We don't want to invest that because there's no return investing 50 million, 60 million pound in a 27-year-old. So, everyone's going, as you say, Sean, overpriced youngsters now. There must be a bargain in that sort of 27, 28-year-old bracket. Sorry, Connor, go on, mate.
Yes, no. Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a couple of points. I think, Jonathan David is obviously a no-brainer. Douglas Luiz is a no-brainer for Tottenham, right? In terms of, that's for, I know you've got to do signing on fee and stuff for Jonathan David, but, you're talking, 35 million and you've got two players there that have got a serious
Correct.
level of experience, improved the squad no end. You have someone who can actually compete with Solanke and arguably better than Solanke, to be honest, in Jonathan David. And then Douglas Luiz is a outstanding passing number 6 as well, right? Which in the Frank system, as we discussed before, Sean, is probably more important than a monster 6. So they feel like no-brainers. I mean, on this point of youth, my prediction is that I think football clubs, I think we're finally getting to a bit of an inflection point, right? In terms of, I think there is, Sean, you made the point on one of your streams the other day about Saudi and how Saudi isn't getting clubs out of trouble so much now because players just don't want to go there. I think that's one of the considerations. I think the other one is when you look at some of the commercial deals that clubs are doing. So Juventus have just signed a new kit deal with Adidas, which is at a much lower rate than where they have been in the past. You've had sponsors pulling out of clubs like Man United, so Marriott pulled out of them. We haven't been able to sell the naming rights on our stadium. I think we're getting to a stage where commercial income has hit a bit of a plateau for clubs. And so how do you make that up? And it's potentially by looking at younger players that you can sell for a profit in the future to make sure you get to the right place. I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think in a couple of years, particularly if this Club World Cup isn't successful, right, and doesn't have another go, I think that's why these clubs are looking at players they can make a profit on.
Yeah, I think that Daniel Levy, as much as it's too early to tell, I feel like we have gone and bought up loads and loads and loads of young talent. And I know that Tottenham fans are getting sick and tired of it, and that's fair enough. But doing all that stuff over the last 3 years, it started with Paratici. Well, I don't give Daniel Levy the credit for these things. I like to give accountability to the people that are employed to make these decisions. And Daniel Levy, I'll give credit if he listens or not. And so I don't give him the credit, but in the buck stops at the top argument, I think that he wasn't the groundbreaker on this pivot to youth, but he was certainly an early adopter of it. And now everybody in world football seems to be going in that direction. You're pricing in perfection for players that often fall off. Like there's so many 18, 19. Look at Jadon Sancho, for example. Maybe Jamie Gittins is another example. Who knows, right? But there's so many examples of these young players that are built up. And maybe that's why Arsenal are having second thoughts about Sesko and all these things. But if everybody is now fishing in the pond of youth, then competition, demand versus supply, you start to price everything up. And I don't really get it, mate, because if you're buying these players now at 30, 40 million when they would have cost you 10 million a couple of years ago because you think there's no sell-on value in a 27-year-old, then why are you buying 21-year-olds for 3 or 4 times their actual value if you're doing it on an asset appreciation logic? It doesn't make sense if you're still believing that no one's paying top money for the guy when he's developed into the 26, 27-year-old, right? There's no logic to it. But to me, the logic is if there's everyone fishing in the youth pool, then you've got your pick at decent valuations in the 26, 27-year-old market, which is exactly what Tottenham need anyway. We've got enough youth. Now we need to go and sprinkle in a little bit of experience. And people like Douglas Luiz available at 25 million. Where is where's the mental cock blocking going on at Tottenham Hotspur where they can't make up their mind and say, I know it's more complicated than just going 25 million. Yeah, we'll have him. I know there's more to it than that. I know you've got to convince and pitch and figure out the numbers and all that stuff. But to me, it makes so much more sense now to be going, if everyone's over here, let's go over here. And surely there's less fishing rods in that pond. And so we've got a chance of getting some real valuable lunch.
Yeah, I think it's spot on. I mean, look, I was making this point on another podcast I was on, Lads, it's Tottenham, around...
You've been on other podcasts, Connor. What's going on?
I have. I'm cheating on you.
Dirty bastard.
But I don't take this message that we are miles away, actually, in terms of what we need to do with our squad. I think there's no chance we had the 4th worst squad in the Premier League. I think it was, clearly the Ange system and Ange's manager. I think even without doing anything, I think Frank gets us into top 10, to be honest. I think, you look at the quality of the squad. that's there. But in terms of what we actually need to do, let's just say, you sign a Douglas Luiz, a Jonathan David, an Eze, and then let's say, for argument's sake, Fofana, because Mbeumo probably isn't going to happen on the right, and then someone who can cover left back, left centre back. You're basically there in terms of what we actually need to do in the squad, and you haven't spent an outrageous amount of money there. And we've got money that can come back in through players like Richarlison, Sonny going, Solomon, Johnny. So I don't think
you'll
there's
trigger him.
huge
You'll trigger
amounts
him.
of work
I'm not triggered.
to do.
I'm not triggered. You'll all be triggered if he gets into the squad and he starts scoring goals. That's gonna freak everybody out. How conflicted will Spurs fans be? Certain sections of the Spurs fan community be if Manor Solomon comes back and starts banging in the goals. Oh shit, it's him.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm happy to be wrong. I've sort of learnt slowly over the years of doing this that picking the losing lottery numbers, there's a hell of a lot of currency in it, right? If you root for something where when you're wrong, your team does like by rooting, like leaning negative about certain things, then if you're wrong, then the upside is that your team does better. There's a lot of currency in it. Like, there's a lot of people that that always say that there's nothing's right about their football club. Even Arsenal fans. I mean, Arsenal fans are kings of doing it. Like, they just moan and moan and moan about their club being, not good enough when they're finishing second most years and that. But obviously, like, it makes sense logically. If you want to be right, if your ego is important to you and you want to be right, then picking failure is your probable outcome. Well, even the most successful teams of all time fail more than they succeed if the line in the sand in success and failure is a season with a trophy. Well, that's just the statistics. And so everybody else is more likely to fail than them. But then when you're wrong and your team actually wins, everyone's too busy celebrating the trophy rather than like sort of remembering to come after you that you've said it wasn't going to happen for so long, and you get to be a part of that celebration as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, look, Sarr makes a very good point here. As a fan base, if we missed out on Mbeumo and it transpired that we refused to buy Mbeumo, we refused to pay the 70 million, but we bought in Jonathan David, Douglas Luiz and Bakayoko. Me personally, I'd be more happy with that bit of business than I would with the 70 million pounds from Mbeumo. Not to say Mbeumo is not a top player, but I think that deal offers much more to the squad over the course of a season than one individual player who could get injured and so on and so forth. I don't know what you guys think, but I quite agree with Sarr there on that one.
Well, also, but you agree with who? With who?
Sarr 89, when he says many fans make no sense. They'd rather spunk 70 million on Mbeumo than utilise the funds effectively. Jonathan David,
25 million, Douglas Luiz and Bakayoko.
Yeah.
No, but you know what? I think there's also some currency attached to it. I think I said this on a previous show. I think people that may not be aware of Semenyo too much because they maybe just watch Tottenham and they watch the Premier League, but because it's Bournemouth, they're not like fully dialed into him. If Tottenham paid £80 million for Semenyo, they'd probably be more excited than if they paid £50 million for him because they attach that there's quality associated with the price tag.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct. I mean, I've just had this before when we signed Bentancur for 17 million. Oh, he's doing nothing. He couldn't even get a game at Juventus. What are we doing? And we all know what happened after that, and Kulu, why if he was so good, why are they letting him go? There's always a narrative. Why have we signed Pape Matar Sarr for 12 million? Why did we sign Destiny Udogie from Udinese? Why does he only cost 15 million? Berghvall, if he was that good and Barcelona really wanted him, they would have got him, £8 million. Ashley Phillips, if he was that good, why would he only cost 2 million? There are bargains to be had because the romance is still in our minds psychologically in the big money signings. Yeah, our big money signings.
Until we go and get someone like Solanke and everyone's like, well, we overpaid for that donut. We overpaid for him.
We overpaid for Richie. We overpaid for Solanke. And we paid 12 million.
Sanchez.
We paid £12 million too much for Brennan Johnson. Remember, Brentford had agreed a fee with Nottingham Forest of £35 million.
Yeah.
And we ended up coming on when Ange came and insisted that was the one he wanted. And, Daniel Levy, who doesn't like to spend money, ended up having to pay 12 million over the 8 for a player. And to add insult to injury, not only did we end up paying £12 million more than Brentford, but we got called out in their lawsuit that it was because of us that Nottingham Forest missed out on their FFP, and that was the reason why they missed their financial targets, because they got an extra 12 million. We give them an extra 12 million, and they tried to blame us.
Yeah. Just a quick one. I've got to ask you guys this, Johnny. I'll stop. Connor, I'll stop with you because you're a finance man. If Daniel Levy was to sell the club, right, for 4 billion, whatever. If he was to then go, you know what, I enjoy football, right? I don't want to leave football. I'll sell Tottenham 100% to Qatar or whatever. I'll go and buy Bournemouth, or I'll go and buy Palace, or I'll go and buy Fulham. I'll go and buy a sort of smaller team with the intention to do what he did with Tottenham, but do it again, start again at a smaller club and build them back up. Do you think the fans of those clubs would look at Daniel Levy and go, fuck off, don't want that guy, he's got no ambition? Or do you think they'd go 100%? Look how he transformed Tottenham from this club to this club in the bigger picture. And if your answer, I'll let you answer, but would your inferences of other teams' fans thinking a certain way, should that be considered in the overall perception of Daniel Levy as a Tottenham manager, a Tottenham owner?
It's a really good question, and one I've not really ever thought about because. I mean, I, as you know, I'm obviously critical of Levy, and got a Twitter account named after him. But I actually put more of the blame on the problems at Tottenham, or what I perceive to be the problems at Tottenham around the ownership, on ENIC and as an overall entity, and more so on Joe Lewis. Because to be fair to Levy, although he's very, very wealthy, most of his wealth is wrapped up in what he owns in Tottenham. So it actually isn't in his own gift to inject more cash into the club. In a way that Joe Lewis certainly could. So I think to be fair to him, that isn't his fault. He's obviously made a number of mistakes, but then he's also done some good stuff around the revenue diversification for sure. I think a lot of, when I speak to fans of other clubs, I get a bit of a mix, to be honest. I think some give him credit because they give him credit for delivering on the stadium, and Tottenham are perceived to be much bigger than they were. But I think a lot of people are critical, obviously, of the way that he operates sometimes, certainly because they see him in the interactions with their own clubs in terms of transfers. I think when he goes, he will go. To be fair, I think this is definitely a hypothetical question. I think he personally, I don't know, if you say the club's worth, 3.5-4 billion, he's going to walk away with around $1 billion based on what he owns. And I think he'll walk away and not get back involved with football, I suspect.
I agree.
It's an interesting one. I haven't really thought about it too much, to be honest, but I think it would be mixed. But I think what most people want their owners to do now is to inject some cash, because that's the way that most football clubs operate, and I'm not sure he's the right man to do that.
Well, he's never going to do that. Let's be honest. Joe Lewis told him a long, long time ago, I'm not putting any more money in. If you want to put money in, you want money, I'll give you the money, but I'll dilute you. So, that's why we've reached this impasse, and which is why we're looking with Charrington and Vinay on the board for some inward investment to kick us on to the next level. The trouble is, will he ever sell up, or will he move off out of the ball to do with the football and concentrate on the development on the opposite side of the stadium, the tower blocks, the sort of mini Wembley way, and all the profits and millions to be made in that development. I think,
mate, I'm thinking about putting a cash injection into Tottenham, mate. I need to get a place up near Tottenham, up near North London, because the journey to get to Tottenham every other week is it's taken its toll on me. So I might have to go and buy one of those properties in the in that new tower block, so I can do my live streams.
The new Mayfair, Shaw. The new was it the new Shoreditch? The new Shoreditch.
The new Shoreditch something. Be the new something.
Sean, I'm going to have to shoot, mate.
Right,
thanks very much, Connor. A pleasure as always.
Nice to see you, mate.
Shawnee, I will speak to you later. Good luck to everyone in the stream.
Cheers, matey.
Take care, mate.
See you, bud. Mate, let's get back to some of the more sort of the kind of nicer the stories to talk about. We've got this guy Kota Takai. I think his name is the Japanese guy. I watched a TalkSport show earlier from a guy who's writes for J League Football Magazine. He was saying that he's surprised that he's made the jump to the Premier League so far. He knew he was going to come to Europe, but that he, young player of the season or whatever in Japan, 6'4". Does his signing? We talk about how many wingers we've got, and by the way, we're down to 9 wingers now because the JA's gone out on loan to was it Chesterfield or something? I forget where he's gone, Stockport or something.
Doncaster.
Doncaster, that's it. Well done, mate, Doncaster. So we'll see how he gets on. Does the signing of Takai, where does he sit in the stack rank? And does that mean that, I saw rumours earlier, Dorrington and Ash Phillips are going to go out on loan again. Dorrington maybe back to Aberdeen. Not sure about Ash Phillips, but have those players done anywhere near enough to be considered like having a chance in the pre-season? What's your thoughts on the centre-back situation at the moment?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, look, I'm not going to profess to have seen a lot of this guy to know what he's like, and obviously the usual suspects are up in arms on Twitter about us signing him, probably because of the timing. If we'd signed Eze last week and then signed him this week, I don't think you'd have people complaining so much, but it's just because it's a £5 million signing that's happened, second. So look, I think on your question though, I don't think Phillips and Dorrington, from what I've seen of both of them, are anywhere near the level required. And there's an argument to say that you can keep loaning these players out, can't you? But at some point you've got to just cut your losses, or not, as the case is, and just sell them.
Would you sell Alfie Dorrington to Aberdeen for like, I don't know, 6 million or something, and then put a 25% sell-on fee in case he balls out?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've got to get a bit more ruthless, and these players again, it's sort of the Chelsea model and the Man City model of sometimes you've got to sell these academy players if you don't think they're going to make it. Sometimes you're going to get it wrong, like City did with Cole Palmer, or with Douglas Luiz was in City's academy at one point, right? So there's players that you're going to get it wrong with, but on the whole, it improves your financial position quite a lot, right? Selling these guys, and I just don't think what I've seen of Dorrington he's ever going to make it. And he must. What's he now? 2021 already?
Yeah. He's getting on. He's getting on, mate. It's the same with some of these goalkeepers we have. Like these players, if we just keep hanging, how old is what's wrong with my memory's terrible. Who's the striker that scored his first goal for the club in the Europa League? He's been out on loan and had 3 failed.
Scarlett.
Yeah. Well, what are we doing there? Do we just
he's
keep
got to go, isn't he? He's got to go.
Got to go at some point, right?
Yeah. You've got to. These guys. I look at once they start getting to that 2021 mark. Kane, who was considered a late developer, was top goal scorer in the Premier League at 21-22, wasn't he? So I know it doesn't happen that way with all players, but he's considered. If you're struggling on loan at the likes of Oxford at 21, you're not going to make it, are you? Probably.
Yeah.
And
I agree,
and I think I think we just and these 2 and 3 millions, they all add up, right? In terms of what that ends up, and particularly on academy players where it's pure profit. So
100%.
Yeah,
100%. You could sell, if you were to sell Dane Scarlett for £5 million, that's essentially the amortized. Like if you amortize that, that's pure profit. But then you can spend that £5 million as an amortized thing for like a Douglas Luiz, right, and kick the can down the road, and then you've solved your central midfield issues. And then we go again. For me, I Yeah, I think we've got to start being a little bit ruthless. We've got too many centre backs. So the centre back situation at the moment, you've got Dragicin, you've got Danso, you've got Vuskovic, you've got Davis, you have Romero, and you have Van der Ven. Now you've got Takai, and then also you've got those two kids in Dorrington and that's nine centre backs. You only need maximum 6, right? That's if you're going to play a back 3. So who are the 3 that go? Is it Dorrington, Phillips, and one other?
Yeah, I mean, Dorrington. I mean, if you could, I know they've just renewed Davis's contract, but who knows whether that's because maybe they want to, it's worth giving him another year in case you can sell him to a Wrexham or someone. I know there was that link. That's probably just because he's Welsh, to be honest. But anyway, there was that link with Wrexham. If I don't think they'll be able to, but Davis, if you could sell him for 5 million again, you'd sell him, wouldn't you?
I would. Yeah, I'd tell. I mean, I don't hate the idea of Ben Davis. It all depends. Like I think we're good at the centre back spot, right? If we keep Romero, I don't know how long Dragicin's injury is going to keep him out for, but let's say he's back.
Yeah.
At some point before the end of the year, Danso, Romero, Dragicin are more than good enough at the right side of centre back, and in a midfield 3, you could play 1 or 2 of them in the midfield. Van der Ven, Vuskovic, and Davies are good enough to play on the left-hand side of the 3, right? That's the 6, surely. You don't need any more than that, do you?
No, I mean, ironically, if Dragicin wasn't injured, and I know, I defend him a little bit because I think he's been thrown into the Ange system, which obviously doesn't suit him. He's played often when the team hasn't been, settled at the back and all of those types of things. But in some ways, we don't have the best balance at centre back in having 3 decent right centre backs and arguably only 1 good left centre back at the moment in Van der Ven. And in an ideal world, Dragicin wasn't injured. If you could get 25-30 million for Dragicin and you go out and sign someone who can play left centre back, that would be better balance. But obviously, that's not going to happen given the injury and where we are. And arguably, Romero could probably fill in at left centre back quite easily because he's so talented on the ball. So I don't think it's a huge issue. But that's the only point about balance I've raised. But I think we're all right at centre back now, assuming Romero doesn't go, obviously.
And at fullback, as much as I'd love to see Jarell Hatto come to Tottenham, are we good? Like in terms of the back, like the 3 fullbacks we've got Jed Spence, Udogie, and Pedro Porro. Do you think that we're just the 4th is going to be either Dennis Sirkin or Kyle Walker-Peters? Is that essentially what you think we're going to do to try and get that homegrown club trained thing up, that number up there?
Sounds like it, doesn't it? I mean, I agree with you. Hatto is sort of my dream signing in defence, actually, because I think, to my point just then about balance, if you had him as your left centre-back cover, plus could play left-back, I think that puts you in a really strong position, but I can't see it. And I mean, the rumours he's talking to Arsenal, interestingly, isn't it?
Do Arsenal need him?
Because they've got a lot of options, right?
But so many, mate. They've got Calafiori, who can play left back. They've got Miles Lewis Skelly, who can play left back. They've got the Japanese fella who can play on both sides.
Tomiyasu, yeah.
Tomiyasu, Ben White.
They've got Gabriel and Kiwior. Yeah, they've got
Gabriel. They've got enough fullbacks as well, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're okay. We're okay there. I mean, I saw someone commented saying we need to keep Ben Davis because he's homegrown. I mean, I don't think I necessarily agree with that.
He's not homegrown for Europe, though, is he?
Well, I think they now have changed that a little bit, that rule, that whole... but to be honest, our Premier League position is fine in terms of the squad, which is... And actually, in the Champions League, our issue is around club trained, hence why we've only got 1 club trained player, which is Austin. Hence why our squad is 22 total. So I don't think he actually helps us, Davis. I don't think we need to keep him.
So do you would you be happy then if the window, forget about outgoings for the minute, if we got Eze, Douglas Luiz, that's what, 85 million quid, 5 million quid on Takai, Matisse Tell, what is he, 30 million quid or whatever we paid for him?
Wasn't it? Yeah.
It's 110 million quid in 4 players. what's the fifth that you need to kind of round off? Is it a striker, another winger, like a Bakayoko, like a, I don't think we'll get an Eze and a Semenyo, but I'd be okay if we, because I don't see Eze. I've got, people are going to call me out for this, but like I genuinely think that Eze is a top signing, a top player, and I've got no problems with us signing him. But I do not think he is the solution that we need off of the wing. I think he's an improvement on the 10, and I think that if you sign him, you have to sell one of Maddison or Decky next summer, which I'm fine with. Fine selling either, and I'd be absolutely delighted to see Eze coming off the left-hand side. But if that's the case, then you need a take-on specialist on the right-hand side to give us some balance. Brennan Johnson isn't that guy. Brennan Johnson might do really well in like a two up front in a back three model where he's playing off of Solanke or something like that. But if you're playing in like a 4-3-3 with a double pivot and you need width on the right off of either side, and Eze's your guy on the left who isn't going to go down the outside and take players on like someone else would, then you have to go and get a right winger as well. But I don't see Tottenham doing £70 million for Semenyo and £65 million for Eze. So like, well, how do you square that circle?
No, it's a really good question. I mean, similar to you, I just love Eze as a player, and I think what he does give you is options, right? We know Maddison is injured a lot. He can also play off the left. We'll have to see how Tell does this season as well, so he could rotate with Tell out on the left. I'm not wholly convinced on Tell, but all of the tacticos tell me that he's going to explode under Frank. So let's see. Let's see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, I think we definitely need to sign someone who can play on the right, because I don't think Brennan Johnson's good enough, to be honest. I think Johnson's fine as a squad player, but I think we definitely need someone who can play off the right. And to your point, I don't think the club will go out and do 60 odd million on Eze and then another 60 million odd on a right winger, even though they probably should. And even from if you look at our net spend since we moved into the new stadium, it's about 113 million quid a year. I think those players you just mentioned get you to about 110 million, you said. So you could, in theory, sign those players you just mentioned. Another 60 million on a right winger takes you to, 170. You've got more than 60 million to come back, right? If we sell who we need to sell in terms of Bissouma, Richalison, Sonny,
If you sell Richarlison, you have to get a striker as well, in my opinion. You can't start the season in full competition.
Jonathan David is, I agree with you. I agree.
But I think Jonathan David's not going to. I think he's obviously going. I'm very surprised that Tottenham haven't been having talks with him, unless he just turned around and said, "I'm not coming to Tottenham," and that's fair enough. But like, there's just not even any links or rumours to a striker, really, is there? Like, apart from that guy Callum Owendo, who's not really a striker anyway. He's like a bit of an all-rounder forward guy, which is fine. And that seems like it's gone a little bit quiet. So, like, I want to see. I want to wake up tomorrow morning and see Tottenham linked with players other than Eze, Mbeumo, and Semenyo, because I don't think you're going to get Mbeumo. I think Eze, for what it's worth, I believe that the fact that contract stipulation has come out, that it's not one lump sum of 68, it's 3 over a year or whatever in 3 different windows, which is still pretty prohibitive. But at the same time, it at least opens the door for other players, other teams to come in. And I think, Semenyo, I just don't think Tottenham are going to pay 70 million quid for him. And I think, if anything, as time goes on, Bournemouth are going to raise that asking price, because they're not going to want to sell. I don't think Bournemouth are going to be able to replace the number. They will not be able to attract the 60 million pound player to come to them. They're Bournemouth. They play in a 13,000 seater stadium. So if you're selling all 3 of your back 4 in one window, and your striker Kluivert and your winger Semenyo, and you can't go and fish in the 50 million pound pond, you might have to go and find, and they're very good at it, young players in various corners of the earth. But that doesn't mean that they're all going to come in and be as good as those 5 that are leaving, because you can't always find the next gem. When you find the gems, sometimes you need to hold on to them or not sell them all. And so for me, I think that if Bournemouth sell, they've already sold Kirkheads, if they've already sold Hoyson, they're about to sell Zabani. If they sell Justin Kluivert to Leverkusen to replace Florian Wirtz, are they really going to sell Semenyo for 70, or are they going to say, no, we're going to put that price up to 90 because we don't want you to go because we can't replace you. We can't replace all of them in one window with new up-and-coming talents because not all of them are going to drop and hit at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. No, I completely agree. I mean, as you say, Bournemouth have been good at it, but they're not all going to transition into the team from day one as well, to your point. And, what they're normally good at is doing it with one or two and giving them a bit of time to get used to the Premier League or whatever. They're not going to do that with 5 and 6. They'll be flirting with relegation, perhaps. And the other, I mean, Bournemouth have now got owners that are serious as well, right? Their owners are not, they're not averse to putting a bit of money in themselves. They're putting about 200 million, I think, their owners to, so I think that these clubs now, they don't need to sell, right, in the same way that maybe they did a few years ago, given the money that comes from the Premier League as well. So yeah, I agree with you. And to be honest, from their perspective, I don't blame them for saying on Semenyo, look, if you want him, the price is 70 million because we don't need to sell him given the business we've already done.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Just super quick. Futures bright, futures Lily White. Thank you very much, mate. I think you said your membership dropped. Appreciate the reload, buddy. I'll be doing a members phone-in show again, hopefully before the end of the week. As soon as I can squeeze the time in. But I appreciate you, mate. Thanks very much. And guys, please smash the like button. There's 550 people here. I don't know what the likes are on, but I'm sure they could be better. So please smash the granny out of it. Mate, just quickly, so a couple of questions here. I'll start with Futures Bright saying, how much do you think we could bring in from Sonny, Rishi, Biss, etc.? What sort of price are we looking at? What do you reckon we could get for Sonny, realistically, and where from?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Son at the moment, the only links really have been Saudi and Turkey.
Yeah.
I think realistically, with 1 year left on your contract, 25 million, something around that mark, 30 maybe at a push.
Would you speak to Juve and say, do you want Sonny? Because if they're looking at players like Jadon Sancho, how about you get Sonny? You make all that money back on shirt sales. He can go and play for one of the best teams in the Serie A and then go, you know what, keep your money. We'll just take Dougie Luiz.
It works, doesn't it?
Or would you take Dusan Vlahovic?
Yeah, I'm not convinced on him, I have to say. I'm not. I mean, we need someone to compete. No, I'm not. He looks. I mean, he's not fluid, is he? In his movement, I think he's obviously, but yeah. So I'm not sure. But look, I think Sonny has got to be 25, 30. I think Richalison 20 million, maybe. I think his injury problems are the worry. Obviously, again, with all of these, you hope Saudi come in and you hope they want to go, right? Because that's how you inflate it. But yeah, I'm not sure. And then Bissouma is going to be 15 million.
Where'd you see him going to? Turkey as well, or Saudi? Would he go? He'd probably go to Saudi, wouldn't he? Pick up a nice paycheck.
Yeah, he thinks. I mean, he was linked with Palace, wasn't he, at one point? I mean, that could have been something perhaps on the Eze deal. I'm not sure why he's linked with Palace, but yeah, I know they wanted him. But yeah, those three have got to go, because those three are. Well, and Manor Solomon as well is another one. Johnny's gone now, so I can say this safely. But they're talking 15 million leads for him. I think you rip their hand off for that, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I would. Yeah, I just don't. I don't rate Solomon at the Premier League level. I think No. The problem is that I think if he goes to Leeds, I sit there and I wonder. Like the reason why he did 22 GA for Leeds was because Leeds won the league and they had like 70%, 62% average possession last year in the Championship, and they're taking on, like Coventry's and Stockport's and whatever else, like that sort of level of team. Like you can run them ragged, but like, is he going to be able to walk past Calafiori? Is he going to be able to walk past a Kirkes? Is he going to be able to walk past, that sort of level fullback or centre back? I don't think he can. I think that. £15 million, like you said earlier, right? It's also that counts because it was a free transfer, right? So that counts as pure profit as well.
Yeah.
So if Tottenham, I don't, it's interesting because I think that when I first saw that story that Thomas Frank I don't know if you've noticed on Twitter in the last 3 or 4 days, there's been like this piss take of everyone saying, "Oh, Thomas Frank wants to take a look at this player," yeah, and it's got out of hand. But like when people were saying, "Oh, Thomas Frank wants to have a look at Solomon," I think that was the genesis of this whole thing. So it was like a piss take ITK saying it, and now the people that are the Solomon, lovers, I think that they, probably were guilty of thinking that there was some truth to it. But if I'm Tottenham, if I'm Thomas Frank, I'm sitting there going, do I want him? And £15 million can get spun into a £50 million purchase on an amortized level because it's pure profit. Not that we're near the FFP threshold anyway, so that's kind of less relevant to us. But at the same time, if you're looking for ways to raise funds to be able to go and get an Eze and someone else, then it really does help, right? So, yeah, to me, sorry to all the Solomon files or whatever you want to call it, the Solar files. But I think that that there's too much value in his sale rather than his keeping. Would you agree?
I know. Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, it's the one position where we've got quite a lot of average players, right, in those inside forward winger positions where, we're both saying, and most of the fan base is saying we need to upgrade, but at the same time, some of them are arguing we should keep Solomon. I mean, there's
same people
an
that were
argument
saying,
to say, like,
where's Mikey Moore's minutes last year?
Well, exactly. And I mean, again, on Moore, look, he's a great prospect, but he's nowhere near ready, is he? Let's be honest.
He's nowhere near ready.
He's not physical enough. So look, and I mean, there's arguments to say Johnson and Odegaard aren't good enough either, right? You go through all of those inside forwards and go that they're all upgradable, and Solomon's even below those ones, so he's got to go.
What do you think about Jamie Donnelly?
Yeah, I like Donnelly. I think it's one of those, isn't it? I mean, for him, for Donnelly, it's most useful for him to go out on loan and do a championship loan this time rather than I mean, he had a great season at Orient, and they rave about him, and I know, and I think he will get a championship loan if we want to loan him. I mean, the one thing Donnelly would be useful for though would be, I suppose he would be one of the best players on the B list for the Champions League, but let's be honest, he's not actually going to be able to really contribute in the Champions League. So
there's something about him, mate, that I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know why I should even say this because it's completely counter. Now, like, it's the counterintuitive narrative of what I've been saying about people like Solomon and stuff. Like, just because you've done it at this level doesn't mean you're good enough here. Yeah. He's done it at this level, right? So there's no reason for me to say this with a straight face. But for what it's worth, I've got a feeling in my bones about him that I don't feel like he'll be flustered by any level. I just feel like he'll like he was clearly one of the best players in League Two last year, or League One rather. And I feel like, the correct thing should surely be to put him out to the Championship and see what he can do. But part of me thinks that he's not a player that relies on his pace. He's a player that's got that kind of that speed of thought, that kind of confidence, and that ability to just use his right foot like a magic wand. And part of me just feels like if you throw him in at the deep end, he'll swim quite comfortably. I don't know why I think that, but and maybe it's mad. I'd love to get everyone in the chat's thoughts on it as well. Like, let us know whether or not you think that Jamie Donnelly needs a loan first, or does any part of you think that he's good enough and just whatever level he's tested at, he'll survive? What do you think, mate?
Yeah, I mean, Pep Guardiola agrees with you, doesn't he? I mean, after they played City, he was really bigging up Donnelly, obviously, with that ridiculous not goal, but should have been a goal, to hit the bar and then the keeper. I mean, I agree with you. I really like Donnelly. I think he's the other thing is sometimes at the youth level. I mean, this is the case with Lancashire for me. I think Lancashire looks really impressive at the under 21 level because he's a lump, right, and he can physically impose himself on younger players. But then when he tries to step up to Premier League, where you're playing against men, you can't just impose yourself physically, and he's technically not good enough, right? Whereas with a Donnelly, I think to your point, he looks almost good at every level because he's technically so good. And he took a little while to settle into Orient, but that's probably because Orient were just kicking the ball over his head, long ball, and it took them a while to get used to actually having a footballer in the team. And then obviously, as you said, he was one of the best players in League One. Yeah, I'm excited to see with Donny. He can play a couple of positions as well. Even in pre-season when he was playing in that inverted left back position, right under Ange when Udogie was injured, he was playing well in those pre-season games against big teams as well, right? So, I definitely wouldn't sell him. Whereas, maybe an Alfie Devine, for example, I think to our earlier conversation, he's one you go, look, he's starting to get past the age where
Fuck, I forgot about
maybe
Alfie Devine.
bite the bullet. Yeah, we bite the bullet and you get your 5 million and you move on.
Where's Alfie Devine at right now? Where was he last season? I forgot.
He was with Vuskovic, weren't he, at Westerlo?
Oh, that's right,
Belgium on loan. Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, I think he did okay, but he's one I would sell.
Sonny, I really hope that we don't have a lot of influence, mate. We I really hope that the club are not listening to us going, oh, yeah, that Connor guy and that Sean, they were talking about giving Jamie Donnelly a crack at the Premier League level. Now, they need to be making up their own mind, mate. I hope they're not listening to the fans too much, but appreciate you, mate. Appreciate you. We're not championing for kids. If anything, mate, Sonny, we've been talking about, for the first 3/4 of the show, we've been talking about, there's a narrative that's emerging in my mind that if everybody's fishing in the youth team pond, then the prices of those players goes up to the point where it's irrational levels for performances that are not proven consistently enough, especially when like half of the valuation of the player, like even Ange Postecoglou said it, right? The difference in the technical abilities between the best and the next best is not that big. It's about a mentality. It's about that sort of thing. And I think if you're buying 18-year-olds and paying 40 million quid for them, how could you possibly know what their mentality is like at 18? They're not even fully developed. Their frontal cortex doesn't, still got 3 more years of growth on it. So, I think that there's a massive, massive swing towards irrational behaviour by the football clubs. And the logic of it doesn't make that much sense. If you're paying premiums for young kids who haven't proven it, on the hope that there's asset appreciation or at least asset continuation on the valuations, in the hope that you can sell them for more in the future. But at the same time as all of that trend is happening, no one's paying big money for 26-year-olds anymore. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I would hope that Daniel Levy, if he listens to us about anything, then maybe he listens on this one that it's about time to go fishing in a pond that's got fewer rods in it, mate, because there's a lot of talent out there, and Tottenham right now are screaming out for a couple of monsters. If not, we spoke a lot about Douglas Luiz, mate. 25 million quid seems like an absolute no-brainer. In the 6 role, for me, I think that's one of those non-negotiables. I don't think you can go and get an 18-year-old, a 19-year-old. As much as I like the look of, these Scandinavian players that are like Hugo Larssons or whatever, I want to see a 25, 26-year-old come in. If not Douglas Luiz, where else would you be? Where else would you be? Polinia, but if not him, where we speak about those two quite a lot. Where else would you like to see us sort of sample the sort of sample that 6 market?
Yeah, I mean, those two are the obvious ones because they're both Premier League proven and relatively cheap. And I think, to be fair to the earlier point, Douglas Luiz counts as homegrown, I believe, or association trained or whatever.
That's right.
Because of where he was at City. So, yeah, I mean, look, those are the obvious ones because of that. I mean, funnily enough, at the younger end of the market, the two that are going to be out of reach because they're extortionate, but I like both of them, are Baleba and Walton, right? But neither of those are going to happen because of the price point.
Might do with a new owner coming in. Maybe a new owner wants to come in and immediately raise some money, right? Immediately get some payback,
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, who else have you got? Richard Rios is spoken about a lot, isn't he? Who plays out in South America, but again,
what's his asking price? Do we know what the Palmeiras want for him? It's like 25, 30.
Yeah, it was something like that. I mean, I think they were asking for more last season, but I think it's gone down to that sort of mark. But it's one of those, how well will he transition across? It's a bit of a risk. I did like Edison at Atalanta. But I don't know where there was talk he might be going to Saudi at one point, I read, but I don't know what the latest is on him. And then there's the guy you like at Leverkusen whose name has escaped me.
Oh, Ezequiel Palacios. Yeah,
Yes.
he's an absolute monster, mate. That guy is Johnny Fillion, Palacios, mate.
There we go.
He is. I think it would be a crime against football to not see that guy playing in the Premier League. I think he'd be so good, so good. But yeah, haven't seen anything about him leaving to come to the. In fact, let me have a look because he's never in the. Let me have a look.
We're not really linked with sixes even though, are we? Because even with Paulino and Douglas Luiz, I think that's the fans rather than there actually being any credible links really with us with sixes at the moment. It doesn't seem. Norgard obviously has been doing the rounds a little bit, but
Would you be okay with him? Would you take him?
I don't think he really raises the ceiling, does he? I mean, he's all right, he's decent, but he's just another. I don't think he's as good as these players that we're talking about here, is he? And he's
just looking. I think it says here Milan complicate the signing of Xavi Alonso's secret weapon for Real Madrid's midfield. So I think the story is that I think it's saying because it's in different language. I think it's saying that Xavi Alonso, after having signed Mastantuono, that Real Madrid are no longer going to be looking at Ezequiel Palacios, and that Milan might now be going in for Ezequiel Palacios. But then Milan have just put in a bid for Arden Jeshwari, who's that 35, 40 million euro player. So if Ezequiel Palacios is available, fucking go get him. Go get him. He would be absolutely insane. But yeah, Philip Randall's saying Norgard's a proper six. The proper six, a monster six, is what we call it. Not very mobile though, is he? He's not mobile in a new system. I think if you're going to have, actually, let me put this question: who's the if we bring in a six, whoever it is, right? Insert guy, whoever there, your favorite player. Who starts next to him in the pivot in the Premier League? Is it Berghvall or is it Bentancur?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? I mean, assuming we're playing 4 at the back, and you didn't mention Sarr either, who I know some people love. I'm not fully convinced on Sarr, to be honest. But I mean, Bentancur for me before Ange and before his injuries was probably our best player other than Harry Kane, right? Under Conte, I thought Bentancur was excellent. Playing in a sort of double pivot with Højbjerg at the time, obviously, and more of an 8 rather than a 6, isn't he? But obviously, Berghvall has probably been our best player this season as well. I think you've got a real opportunity to rotate those players. We've got in that sort of 8 position, we've got a few options, haven't we, with those two and Sarr, obviously. I don't think that's an issue, but I think. It's interesting as well because when we play 3 at the back, I think we had this discussion the other week, didn't we? That that we don't really need or want a monster 6, particularly if we're playing 3 at the back, because you need someone who can progress the ball well, right? And so there is an argument to say when we play 3 at the back and when Frank moves us to that, maybe you can play Bentancur and Berghvall or Bentancur and Sarr as the 2 in centre midfield because you don't need a 6 so much, right? But yeah, I would like to see a sign of 6 for when we're playing 4 at the back, which I expect Frank to play mostly.
Do you? And I'm going to jump around a little bit here. I'm just looking at an article here from Caught Offside that are saying that Tottenham are making a move. It's just dropped in the last little while. That Tottenham are making a move or considering making a move for Vissa. So my mind is fucked.
Yes.
What do you think? What do you about Heung Vissa? Do you think if he comes in? Obviously, this would require a departure from Richalison, and we know on this channel we make a lot of fun and jokes about the fact that he's the little brother who ain't going, the cop block when you're trying to get laid on Netflix and chill night. If Richarlison was to leave, would you be okay with Heung Vissa coming in?
Assuming Jonathan David isn't happening, as we discussed earlier, I think
he's not happening, mate.
This is
he's not going to come to Tottenham.
No, he isn't. I think this is a decent option, to push Solanke. Look, I think the reason why they're looking at that sort of level is because I think the club are still of the view that Solanke's the man, right? I'm not 100% sure yet. We'll have to see how he does under Frank, and maybe Frank will get we'll get a bit more out of him. But I think the club are thinking, look, we've just done 65 million on Solanke. We want to give him more than one season, and therefore we're not going to go and spend a huge amount on a centre forward. So Visser, I think is a good option probably for a couple of years to compete with Solanke and to give you a bit of a different option at times. He's a bit of a handful, but obviously he doesn't have age on his side. I think he's about 28. But I don't hate it. I think he's better than Richarlison, and more available.
He's miles better than Richarlison.
Yeah. So I think
I genuinely think that Richarlison is possibly one of the worst footballers that Tottenham have ever spent more than sort of £15 million on. He's good in the air. He's a handful. He's a shithouser. He's passion merchant. All the things that you love about the guy. But in terms of his ability to kick a ball, he's fucking shocking. I think he's good. He's good with head. But this is the thing. This is the consideration, right? So, like Thomas Frank's Brentford were cross merchants. Like they banged that ball in. Like I think
when they played us, right, and they put God knows how many crosses in the box against us, and we somehow won.
It was madness, wasn't it? It was absolute madness. They loved doing it, and Mbeumo was not. I don't think Mbeumo was coming to Tottenham, but he was like one. I think he had the number one amount of crosses completed or whatever it was in the league last year, and I think his XA expected assists was like 7 or 6 more than what he actually got, which is saying that he put the ball into good spots, but unfortunately the opportunities that he presented his team were not punished. And so, like maybe if he's going to go down the same sort of path and get his wingers, get his wide men to whip the balls in, or get his fullbacks to whip the ball in, like a Pedro Porro, maybe, as much as it kills me to say it, maybe Richarlison is a better fit than Solanke in terms of, you'd rather. I don't think Solanke's terrible in the air, but I think that Richarlison is, if you're going to give him credit where it's due, he knows how to get his on it.
He's very good.
Very good in the air.
Richarlison's very good in the air, to be fair. I mean, to your other point, he can't trap a bag of sand and he spends half the game on his arse, but he can head the ball. For me, the biggest problem with Richarlison's availability, though, to be honest. I mean, even, you just can't have a £60 million signing who is on £100,000 a week or whatever he's on, who's only available. Well, what's he played? I'll be surprised if he's hit 50% of our games, right, since he's been there. So you've got to get rid for that reason. But I take your point. I mean, that Mbeumo stat that you give is quite a surprising one because, to be fair, Mbeumo has been a bit of an inside forward as well at Brentford, right on the right. So the fact that he's still crossing so much shows that obviously they're quite fluid in their movement.
Yeah. No, he's he often starts narrow, but then like when the right back moves down the thing, he's very often goes outside drifts out to the right and to the right, picks the ball up, beats the man, and then whips it in. It's a shame, and that someone put it in the chat there, just like just pay the extra 5 million. Now I spent the last. Big up, Danny. How you doing, mate? This is one of the geezers that I've had these rows with over the last 3 years. When I first came into the Spurs space, and no one knew who I was. I was going on streams with Brian Daigle and Danny, for example, and having these blazing rows. And because they were like more like they were faces, in the space, and I wasn't. People were getting really annoyed with me when I would come in and defend Daniel Levy a little bit. But like the argument that was so prevalent was Jack Grealish. Right, £5 million. We could have had him if we just paid £5 million more. And I said at the time, but no one paid the extra 5 million. It wasn't just Daniel Levy that didn't value him at the right price or at that price point. Every other chairman in world football didn't think he was worth the 5 million extra that Aston Villa wanted for him. And obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, like everyone screwed up there. But I feel like now you don't need the benefit of the hindsight here. If Brentford are just waiting for £5 million more. It's £5 million, go and sell Dane Scarlett, go and sell Alfie Devine, and then you've got your money for Mbeumo on the right, and then you've got Eze on the left. Hopefully, sell Sonny, you could sell Richarlison then because you could play a 2 and and Mbeumo can be the front guy, right? So like I just on this one, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see this. I don't want to be having arguments in a year's time. with people saying we should have paid the £5 million more. I don't know whether or not Mbeumo would come to Tottenham anyway if we just paid whatever Brentford want.
I was about to say that. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't need a reason to defend Levy before anyone in the comments bites my head off. But I actually think with Mbeumo, my theory is that a lot of this Tottenham interest talk is the media being sold a story by the agent to try and get United to pay what Brentford want. And I think his heart is set on United. I think he's, I think it, and this happens sometimes, right? Players, it doesn't matter if we pay the extra 5 million. The guy wants to go to United because he was a boyhood United fan. Don't ask me why you would go there right now, but it is Man United, and I think he will end up there, unfortunately.
Like Johnny, cue people blaming the Taki move. Takeshi's Castle cost £5 million. We could have got Mbeumo. Yeah, it's going to be a weird one, mate. It's going to be a weird one. But good evening. Where's Phil? Good evening, Phil. Good to see you, mate. Woo. If not, as I said earlier, mate, I'm desperate for Tottenham. I'm desperate to wake up tomorrow morning and actually have some new news to get to speak to everyone about with on my morning walk with the dog. By the way, guys, sorry, I was going to do a stream this morning, but Bugsy had to go in for an emergency procedure. She got I've got it here. I'll show it to you. You can't see it. It's in the thing. Maybe I can show you the right side of it. If you can see right in there, let me see if it can focus. There's a grass seed. Oh, it's not going to focus. There's a grass seed in there, and it got inside her ear, and she's driving herself mental. Imagine having like a little bit of hair that you couldn't reach in your ear that's tickling your eardrum, driving her mental.
What is she, a Cocker Spaniel?
A Sprocker Spaniel, so half Springer, half Cocker.
Okay.
Yeah. So she loves to go in the
Cocker Spaniel. That used to happen to all the time with the grass seeds.
Yeah, and it costs like £700-800. And it happens like once a month. I've got to go and get it taken out. So she's. That's why I didn't get to do a video this morning, guys. But she's back on her feet, bless her. But I mean, I want to see some new names because I'm getting bored out of my mind of talking about Semenyo and Mbeumo, Eze. Let's just play the game here, and I want the chat to be involved in this one. If not, none of those three, right? Let's just say, for example, that Eze goes to City, and Mbeumo goes to United, and Semenyo stays at Bournemouth. Where do Tottenham pivot to next? Where's the next people that we look at? Is it a Morgan Gibbs-White? Is it a Johan Bakayoko? Is it an Almada from Botafogo slash Lyon? Is it a 10 that we're looking for primarily because we know that those guys are out injured, Decky and Maddison? Or does it have to be an everything player? And if so, could we go and look at Pedro Gonçalves? Where do we go in a world where those three names are off the list?
Yeah, I think you've got Bakayoko, obviously, as you said. I think Adeyemi. Yeah, someone's just said that in the comments.
He's such a pace guy. He's so fast. Absolutely.
Fofana, to the earlier point. Kudus, obviously. West Ham.
Would you take Kudus? Would you take him?
It depends on the price point again, doesn't it? I think he's I wouldn't for 85 million, which is his release clause.
Yeah, it's similar sort of price for the rest of them, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I funnily enough, I think Bakayoko and probably Fofana are going to be cheaper than that sort of 50-60 mark. But I do think that's the sort of level that we need to be paying for our right winger, don't we? You think Brennan Johnson was, 47.5 or whatever he was. So,
would you be okay
think those are the realistic.
If Tottenham went and got a Johan Bakayoko for 30, and with that, they also went and got a Malik Fofana for 30, right? And then also went and got a 10, like a Morgan Gibbs-White for 60. Would you be like, that's, and then obviously next summer you'd sell one of Maddison or Decky. That's, to me, is the outcome, right? I think whatever, if we bring in someone that's a main 10, then one of those two would be gone this summer, but they're both injured, so they're not going to be. So that next summer they piss off. But would you be okay if Tottenham went and got? Because I think someone made the point earlier on, right at the very start of the show. Someone's like, everyone's like waxing lyrical about £70 million for this guy, but why don't you get 25 for Bakayoko, 25 for Douglas Luiz, and 25 whatever it was they said? Would you be okay if Tottenham spent, like 100 million quid on 3 players that was in the forward market? Just completely revolutionise our wings, but don't go and get like a tried and tested, but maybe go and get someone that's not done it in the Premier League, but that's still exciting and doing really good things in their various leagues right now.
Yeah, to be honest, that's the thing we did wrong probably with the Balmain way back when, is that we spread the amount over too many players, and then that meant that you were getting that sort of lower tier of player. And ordinarily, it would tell you that we would be better off buying 2 £50 million players than 3 £33 million players or whatever. That being said, to your earlier point, I do think right now there are some real good players to be had at that, who are a bit older, to the point we've discussed a lot throughout this. Like a Douglas Luiz, who's only, because I don't think you get a better player than Douglas Luiz unless you start looking at the like 80 to 100 million pound mark. The Adam Waltons of the world, Balabers, in terms of long term as well. So Douglas Luiz or Paulino is a no brainer for me. And then I think I'd like to see Eze plus a right wing. If you said to me, we signed Douglas Luiz, Eze, and Bakayoko, just as an example, and what's that?
Fucking all day long, mate. I'd be so happy with that.
I would be over the moon, and I would 100%. I would say kudos to Daniel Levy,
but not Mohammed. We don't need you anymore. Just well done, Daniel. Well done in the different way. Yeah.
But
how about the geezer Moise Kean? Would you go and get Moise Kean? Ex Everton, absolute baller of a. He's out in Fiorentina at the moment. He's a beast of a player. He's like a cruiserweight boxer. He's absolutely stacked, fast, tricky. He probably wasn't ready for the Premier League, or maybe he's just not that type of player. But he didn't do it at Everton. Went over to Italy, killed it. And there's links now with him coming back because Fiorentina need to sell some players. Would you like? I mean, he's a winger. Sorry, he's a striker, not a winger. But like, would you? Any thoughts on him?
I have to say, I haven't seen loads of him since he left Everton. As you say, he didn't quite cut it at Everton. In the same way, though, to be fair, I see a few people talking about Lookman. Obviously, Lookman, when he was in the Prem, didn't completely say it alight. And then, obviously, at Atalanta, he's been brilliant, right? More off the left, so I don't know whether it's as much, I really want to see us sign, particularly if we're going to go for Eze, who can sort of play 10 or off the left. I really want to see us sign a marquee right-sided forward, or a big signing on the right.
But then what happens then to? So if we go and get a right winger, what happens to Odegaard or Johnson?
Well, I think Johnson becomes a sub, which I think is probably right. I know Johnson's got a lot of goals and assists, so a bit of a back post merchant, isn't he? But I just don't think he impacts games enough if he doesn't score. Doesn't do enough outside of that sort of back post scoring. Although again, maybe he will improve when he's not being asked to be a touchline winger and he's an inside forward, because he certainly is not a touchline winger. And then Odegaard, I think at the moment is sort of your cover on both wings, almost your sort of 6th or 7th. So if you go, let's just say we signed Eze and Bakayoko, for example. You've got Bakayoko and Johnson on the right, Eze and Tel, who can play off the left, Odegaard can play either, and Solanke obviously down the middle, and then whoever replaces Richalison.
Yeah.
Got good depth there.
Mate, we've got a lot of time left in the window. We've got a week, though, probably until it all kicks off. Do you know, mate, I was going to ask you this. Do you know, I know you mentioned before that Liverpool took the 11th month thing and they moved their window ahead by a month, right?
And theirs just was end of May. Anyway, their accounting year has been end of May for a few years.
Oh, has it? Okay. And Aston Villa taking the 13th month.
They did it. So they did the 13th. Yeah.
That was to get themselves out of FFP trouble, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And have they then corrected that again now? So are they back now to like 1st of July, or are they still 1st of August?
They will be to 30th of June for the latest set of accounts. Yeah.
Okay. So does that add even more pressure to them then to be able to only get 11 months of revenue in this year?
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't looked very. I know they've got issues. They are probably the only team who's got a real issue this year. They are definitely going to fall foul of the UEFA rules. I.e., it's not even going to be close. They're definitely going to get a fine. The thing is with the UEFA rules is that most of the time UEFA will just give you a bit of a poxy fine and then give you a couple of years to get back within it. So there's no chance that they're going to get within that 70% squad cost control or the allowable losses over for a
And how
couple of
much
years.
how much is the fine? Is the fine like largely irrelevant? Is there not really a
Hundreds of
punishment?
thousands.
Really?
Yeah, it's hundreds of thousands. Yeah, it has been the examples that we've got. Chelsea have had issues.
Barcelona got enough people, didn't they, as well, a little while ago for it?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's basically not a fine, for football clubs. The thing that I think they might end up getting stricter about is if they, for example, agree with Aston Villa, right, we'll give you 2 years to make sure that you fall within it or whatever, which is probably what they will do, and then Villa don't. That's when I think they'll start talking about, expelling them or not allowing them in competitions and those type of things. But certainly for that sort of first issue, you're fine. From a PSR perspective, I think Villa are going to do something creative, like sell their women's team or one of these moves, I'm guessing.
Last question.
Given we're on the 24th of the month, right, and
yeah, go on.
I haven't sold anyone, so
do you? So, are you expecting everything to just kick off on the 1st of July, like I am, like Johnny is, or do you think that there's going to be, like it's all just the 1st of July doesn't really change because you could ultimately, I guess, be just organising your deals now for the payments to be made from the 1st of July. Is the fact that it's been a slow window mainly, in your opinion, to do with that? Or do you think it's more to do with just the fact that people are sitting on their hands trying to figure out whether it's a buying market or a selling market?
A bit of both. I think I think the fact that you've got no clubs other than Villa in PSR trouble, no one's really desperate to sell players in June to make sure they're okay. You remember last year we had that sort of mad rush at the end of June where we're selling kids who have never played for the first team to each other to get ourselves out of trouble. And I think, it's in the buyer's interest to kick the can down the road, particularly for us, right? Because if you think in the 24-25 accounts, which are about to end for us, we've got Solanke in those numbers, for example, because he didn't sign till July, August time. And we know for 25-26, we're going to have Champions League money. The revenue is going to be getting close to 700 million, I'm guessing. I think we're very happy for players to hit those numbers. And a lot of other clubs, whenever businesses can kick the can down the road, they normally will, won't they? And tomorrow's problem is not today's problem, and so I think it will. I think we'll start to see, and players start to come back from training as well. So I think we're expecting ours back 3rd, 4th of July. So Frank hasn't, to be fair, had a proper chance to really sit down and look at the squad and all of those types of things. And so for us, certainly, I think July it will start to ramp up. But I think even for other clubs, it will as well.
Mate, appreciate that insight. Last little commentary here. I've just seen Fabrizio Romano saying that there's a second one here. AC Milan have apparently are about to sign Luka Modric on a short-term deal. They're also they're saying that Theo Hernandez to Al Hilal. He wants to try a new chapter, but he's not really. Well, this quote is saying we're working on it to Al Hilal, but he's already turned down Al Hilal. Any part of you like to see Theo Hernandez in the Premier League, mate? I mean, he's not quite the player he was. He's only 27, by the way. I thought he was like 31.
Oh, wow.
He's only
I thought
27.
He was older than that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not. He's still a baby, relatively. I think he's an absolute baller. I don't think it's going to happen, but. There's not a lot of money that's necessarily needed to get him, and I'd absolutely adore to get that guy into the Premier League. I don't care where he plays, but if it's at Tottenham, would you like to see him at Tottenham?
Yeah. You're getting loads of comments saying Sava raid.
Oh, appreciate you, Sava. Well done, mate. Thanks, mate. Very nice of you, buddy.
Yeah.
Well done, everybody. Hello.
Very
Where have you been? Oh, you've been at Sava's. Okay. Appreciate you, Sava.
I won't take it personally. Yeah. No, look, I like Theo Hernandez, good player. I can't see it with us. I don't know what his wages are like, but yeah, I do like him, and this supports sort of Sean what we were saying earlier about Saudi, right? In terms of there's another example of someone who's turned down a move to Saudi in towards the latter stages of his career.
Mate, I genuinely think that the enigma that is Saudi, if the Premier League is the sugar daddy of Europe, and I'm going to have to go and pull up some stats and data around which clubs have been the biggest beneficiary of Saudi money from Al Hilal, Al Ittihad, and the other ones. I just think if everybody's turning their nose up to Saudi, the shockwaves that will have through European football, there's no more get out of jail free cards. I think you're going to see like a massive, massive impact in the ability for, especially in like France are fucked. France sell a lot of their players to Saudi, and without their like the TV deal that's crashing around them, I think it's like, I hope that Daniel Levy doesn't sort of always go, well, you know what, we're going to wait and see on these things, because like there's a lot of smoke. Does that mean that there's fire? Like sometimes you still have to do business regardless of the circumstance, right? You still have to take the chance, and you still have to, like, just if you see an opportunity, take it. If the club have made a move, but I genuinely do think that there's two stories that are kind of collapsing into themselves at the moment. One is the pivot towards youth. We spoke about it already. Just for those that might have just joined, we're saying like everybody's now moving towards youth centric. Everyone's paying up for talent that hasn't proven themselves. £10 million 18-year-olds are now £30 million 18-year-olds. And on top of that, if Saudi Arabia are not able to like convince players, because the player power is there, and they say, I don't want to go to Saudi, maybe the money's impressive, but I don't want to be in the heat, or maybe I don't want to be in a war zone, because they're right on the geographical proximity, right, to problems. Let's be honest. I don't want to talk about politics, but there's problems out in that area, massive problems. And who knows how that whole thing's going to end. And so I just think that there's like, and it's all happening now. It's all happening just as the window goes. So like, I just feel like Liverpool set a really weird benchmark by paying so much fucking money for Florian Wirtz, who is a young kid, and maybe he's the best talent in European football. But like, it's a massive risk. Now they've gone and kind of sold Kwanzaa and other players to some sort of make ends meet and make it work. But like, you put that to one side, and everybody else is sitting on their hands. And I can't help but think that Saudi Arabia has something to do with that. I can't help but think that like that teams that often that more predominantly are likely to go, hey Saudi, do you want to pay this much for this player? And maybe that will screw up Sonny. Would Sonny want to go to Saudi Arabia right now, given the fact that A, no one else wants to go, and B, the fact that there's a war out there or not far away. There's collateral damage to these things, isn't there, Connor? And I just think it's going to like materialize into unknowns.
He's not
going to be shockwaves.
Yeah, he doesn't strike me as money driven either, does he, Sonny? I mean, that he could have, if he was, he could have left us a long time ago, right? If he was very money driven. So yeah, I do agree with that. And I mean, look, on Wirtz as well. I was having this debate on Twitter a little while ago around, because I think they're reporting that he's only on 200 grand a week, only, but. That Wirtz transfer obviously is an outrageous transfer fee, but there's also no chance he's only on 200 grand a week. He's on considerably more than 200 grand a week. You've only got to look at what Liverpool's total wage bill is. If he was on 200 grand a week, it would place him sort of 7th or 8th probably as in their top paid players. So if you just do the back of a fag packet calc, so he's probably on, I would guess, 300 up. So, as you say, that's a really expensive signing. Obviously, they got the benefit of they didn't do anything particularly last summer, and they've made a lot of money. So, they're fine. But it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I suppose the question is, Wirtz, I think, looks a fantastic footballer. But what's a better deal? Is it a Wirtz at 120 million, or is it an Eze at 60?
Well, is he twice the player? I don't think so. Or better yet, how about you talk about like a Gyökeres that scored 100 goals in 103 games. Like,
you could get both, couldn't you? You could go Eze and Gyökeres for the for a verse. And but to be fair, the top of the market does work that way, doesn't it? In that there's always those arguments. There's some players at that £100 million plus point, and you go, an Enzo Fernandez, for example, Chelsea paid 110 million for, and you go, oh, I could pick 250, 60 million pound midfielders, and you'd be better off, right? But
yeah, 100%. Maybe maybe the considerations though, like maybe Newcastle United that are apparently getting tapped up by Liverpool for Alex Isak, right? And that Liverpool are willing to drop 150 million on him. Yeah, fair enough. If they got money to burn, apparently Liverpool, and fair enough. But like, if you're looking at these kind of exterior variables that are kind of slowly dripping into the market, and they clearly are, French football, right? There's value everywhere in that whole league. You've got, like I say, the Saudi thing, the overpaying for youth. Maybe like Newcastle United could get ahead of the curve here and actually, just like what happened with Coutinho when Liverpool sold Coutinho for whatever it was, 120, 130 million quid, and then they went and bought Van Dijk and Alisson. And at the time, all Liverpool fans were like, what are we doing? Why are we selling our best player? And he fucked up and absolutely flopped at Barcelona. But Liverpool, that was the catalyst for them to do what they've done, right? That was the start of their major rebuild, and everything since then, the rest is history. Maybe Newcastle United, when you look at those things that are bubbling up in various pockets of world football, maybe it's the perfect time to sell before the whole Saudi market implodes, before the overpayment on youth is obvious everywhere. Because I think it's obvious to me that like the amount of money that's changing hands for 17 and 18-year-olds is just insane. And as we said earlier, right, like if the idea is that no one's paying up for 24, 25, 26-year-olds, then why are you overpaying for a 20-year-old thinking that you've got asset appreciation there when the whole market's telling you that we're not going to overpay for people in 3 or 4 years' time? So to me, it's like, I think it's short-lived, and I think people are being really silly, and I think the smartest minds in the room should be going and sniffing out. If you can sell a player for top valuation now, probably the right time to do it, because I don't see that there's going to be that much inflation in the broadcasting deals. You said earlier, and I agree with you, that the commercial market looks a little bit kind of stagnation. Like we're not getting naming rights deals. You're saying about Adidas sponsorship deals are a little bit sort of lower than expected. There's a lot of reason to think that maybe in a couple of years' time that the market's going to come back down to reality. And I don't know whether or not like Newcastle United should be that guy that's selling a penthouse flat at the top of the market, knowing that in a couple of years' time they'll only get half the money for it.
Yeah, I think their challenge now, though, is, Newcastle haven't been able to spend, haven't been as creative as others with accounting. We spoke about this a little bit on Football Link, didn't we? They haven't really cheated the rules to allow PIF, the Saudis, to spend a whole host of money, and they've actually stuck to PSR. So that's the reason why, because if they sold Isak, assuming it doesn't happen in the next week, i.e. before the end of June, they could sell it for, say, 100, 150 million in July. But what they could actually spend this summer, because it's based on the accounts up until the end of June, is prohibited, right? Because they're although they don't have a PSR issue, they're not a million miles away from one, right? So they wouldn't be able to go out and spend 150 million this summer, for example. So they, that's why I suspect with Isak, I think Isak is probably willing to give Newcastle another year. They're back in the Champions League. And then I think if they sell him, they'll sell him next to June, so that it allows them to spend the money in that summer. I don't think it's going to happen this summer, is my prediction.
At this stage, I know it's too early to tell, and there's not been a hell of a lot of market transactions, but in terms of the market that we've seen, at least the intentions, I know that we can treat most of the news reels with like a pinch of salt. But at this stage, how do you see? I'm not saying like if all the teams stayed the same, but just looking at the relative ambitions that are being sort of explored in the transfer news, views, and clues. Where do you see the top 5 being next season in the Premier League?
Liverpool, City, Arsenal. Will
those three have got
definitely
you
be in
wrapped
there.
up, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then Newcastle and Chelsea, I think, are going to be there or thereabouts. I think Villa. I think Villa are a bit lower than that, to be honest. I think Forest will. I think Forest will fall off. I think particularly with competing with Europe. And I think, to be honest, as I said, I mean, I know we finished 17th, but I'm optimistic we will get back in the top 8 at least
Same.
next year with a proper manager. I think this squad is good enough even without, and actually, as we keep saying, I don't think there's a huge amount we need to do actually if we're just smart about it. So I think we'll finish top 8. I think the top 5 right now, I would say, is Liverpool, Villa. Not Liverpool, Villa. Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Newcastle, Chelsea. I think
Top
are all
5, yeah.
above us right now. Yeah.
Well, you think Man United will
then,
get back up? You think Man United will have a very short drop and then be back up in the top 7, 8 next year? Or do you think that Amorim's just not a good enough manager?
I think their squad needs too much work.
Yeah.
You look at our squad on paper versus theirs. I think our squad is better. Kuna's a good signing. If they get Mbeumo over the line, that's obviously a good signing and does a lot of work in terms of their forward positions. They still need serious work in terms of some of the midfield options, wing backs. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think they'll finish top 10. I think both us and them will be back in the top 10 next season, but I think I don't think they'll push the top 5.
Yeah, I think as it stands, it's a lot of time left in the window. It's far too early for the game, but just because we played it, I'm going to hold you to it. I'm going to click this up and put it in my vault.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
bring it out in September, and mock you quite appropriately. Now, I'm with you though. I think at the moment, I think Villa are the likely team to drop down. At the moment, I think that they're going to struggle to be able to recreate. I think Bournemouth are an outside chance for a real disappointment next year. I said earlier, if you're going to sell your 5 best players. I think here, if you get 500 million quid, you can't spend 100 million pound as a Bournemouth team on a player because 100 million pound players are not coming to Bournemouth to play in front of 12,000 people. Not going to happen. So I just don't think you can find pockets of gold that can immediately do that all the time. Brentford and Brighton have struggled in the past. Anyway, I think that Forest for me, they seem to have this like track record of just getting nuggets. I think they're going to sign George Weah's son, Timothy Weah, and that other guy.
We were linked as well, weren't we?
Yeah. And they got the two guys out of Botafogo. I think Forest will be a shout for top 8 again next year, but like you say, playing European football for the first time in decades is going to be a challenge for them. But I agree with your top 5, and then after that, it's going to be 6th, 7th, and 8th. I think Spurs, United, and Villa will be pushed hard by Forest, and I think it's going to be a fucking fascinating season. Like I'm literally looking at it going, there's 10 teams. There's 10 teams that can all push for Europe realistically. Palace might have a little sniff. We'll see how they handle 2 games a week. But yeah, it's going to be awesome, mate, and we'll continue to chew over. I don't think Brighton are going to do it, mate. I mean, Brighton are a good team, but they'll be there or thereabouts for now. I think Brighton will finish like 11th or something, but they'll be there or thereabouts.
Well, this season's interesting as well because you've got 10 teams, isn't it, in Europe?
9, I think.
Yeah. 9. Did it end up at 9? Yeah, sorry, 9. So I think it's because it's the top 7 plus Palace and us, isn't it? That's going to be interesting. I mean, there's going to be, and you've got at the same time you've got this new Sky deal, right, where they're broadcasting basically, God knows
100 more games or whatever it is.
So so there's going to be no Saturday 3:00 and match of the day is going to be shite this year, right? Because no one's going to be playing.
Yeah.
It's already started to go that way anyway, and this year is going to be.
How have they not got rid of that fucking archaic rule that was put in by pissed off women in the 80s or 90s, whatever it was? It's like, come on now, what are we doing? It's like it's 2025, everything is streamable, and yet the football gods like, no, can't forget the women.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing for us is we've got a decent start as well, right? We have got our first 5 or 6 fixtures are not too bad. Which I know you've got to play everyone twice and all of that crap, but in terms of instilling some confidence, hopefully for Frank straight away. Burnley at home, we couldn't have asked for a better first game. So, let's see.
Mate, it's a perfect time to where, mate, we've been going for an hour and 45. Mate, I want to say massive thank you to you, Connor, for coming on, buddy.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, mate, you're a legend, mate. We're gonna have you on all the time if you want to continue to come on, mate. Guys, please, if you are on Twitter, Levy Nomics 1882. Connor's a lovely guy, obviously Spurs fan, but he's also he's good with the financial stuff as well. And we're gonna keep sort of chopping that stuff up as we go through the season and see how Daniel Levy figures out the various mechanics of this transfer market. Because, like we've been saying, the theme of the show for me is that there's just things that are percolating. There's stories that are emerging elsewhere that are, I think there's going to be collateral impact on that. And I think it's going to affect a lot of the Premier League clubs as there's no more, or it looks like that Saudi has less relevance to be able to help people get out of their trouble. But guys, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming on. Please smash the like button. Please smash the subscribe if you haven't already. And you'll see me back, hopefully, if Bugsy's okay, tomorrow morning for a new stream, as long as there's something going on, because right now it's fucking boring. Appreciate you, Connor, mate. Appreciate everybody. Please smash the granny out of the various buttons, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everyone.
Thank you very much, guys. Cheers.
Bye.